Dak Prescott is ranked 16th. Really? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. It is Mr. Cowboys Fan. Of course, before we proceed into the video, leave a like and subscribe. It is I, Mr. Cowboys Fan, where we talk about cowboy things. So I'm super late, super late, but I do have to talk about the fact that Nick and Colleen ranked Dak Prescott 16th. 16th. Look, I don't care who you are. If you have Dak Prescott, if you truly believe that Dak Prescott is a middle of the pack quarterback after leading the league in touchdown passes, second in the NFL in passer rating, and top 5 in passing yardage, and he won 12 games behind an average at best offensive line, 1 to 2 consistent weapons at receiver to throw to, and he had an inconsistent defense. Look, the fact of the matter is, they say stats don't lie. I promise you, stats do lie. All right, I promise you that. Stats definitely do lie. All right, and they definitely lie in this scenario because I can assure you that if you actually watched the games of the Cowboys, that defense was not all that. Now, if you looked at the defensive rankings, you would think that that was a top 5 defense that we had out there on disposal. All right, week after the thing is that that's not a top 5 defense week after week after week. No, that's just the overall statistics. We weren't a top 5 defense every single week. All right. See, that's the perception. That's the perception. You see, they weren't the top 5 defense in the NFL all year long. No. They went stupid. They went absolutely ballistic versus at times below average competition and at times against competition. But the fact of the matter is they just went stupid and absolutely ballistic on a handful of occasions, a few occasions that really, it inflated their overall defensive rankings and defensive stats at the end of the year. The fact of the matter is that was not a top 5 defense in the NFL all year long, if you ask me. They played like the top defense in the NFL. They'll play like a top defense in the NFL, 1 week, and then they'll go out there and look like a below average or absolutely terrible defense another week. And that's just not what we're looking for. If you go look at the San Francisco 49ers with Brock Purdy, who I believe he's a little bit overrated, the fact of the matter is his defense does play like a top 5 defense in the league week after week after week. Yeah, they might have had maybe a couple duds in that, when you go look at their season. They might have had a couple of duds, like against the Ravens, even though that was also followed up by Brock Purdy's 4 interceptions that set them up with bad field position. And, of course, they had maybe, I want to say that game against the Cardinals, maybe, where they gave up, a lot of points. But yeah, they had like maybe a couple duds in there near the end of the season. But other than that, like they were great all year long, you know. So to say that Dak Prescott had a top five defense, he might have had a top five defense when you look at the rankings, but he didn't have a top five defense week after week after week on a consistent basis. He just didn't. That defense was inconsistent. And I would say that defense is overrated. All right? Call me crazy. Call me stupid if you want. Our defense is overrated. All right? They just are. They're overrated. All right. So we'll see what happens this year with the new defensive coordinator at the helm. All right, and see what new makeovers he wants to do to tailor make this defense. But yeah, and then back to what I was saying, about the fact that he has maybe one to two, consistent weapons to throw to. We know he has CeeDee Lamb, the best wide receiver in the league, as I have said before. And all right, and I would say Jake Ferguson, he shows, a lot of flashes, of course, but I'm gonna have to see that even more in 2024. That's the thing. I'm not fully ready to say that he's one of those consistent weapons that Dak can fully depend on every time. I can't, I'm not ready to say that yet. But CeeDee Lamb, yes. Unfortunately, Brandon Cooks, we'll see what happens this year, but, he's not, consistently reliable. Now there was a stretch in that second half of the season where he was very reliable in the red zone, but that's just in the red zone. All right. I'm talking about from but the 20 in between the 20s. All right. He was not reliable to move the chains and get down the field, on a consistent basis. All right. And that's the main thing that I, always, fathom for this team is consistency. Consistency. And that's just something that I don't see out of a lot of people on this team, including Brandon Cooks. But yeah, he's not, fully reliable in between the 20s, but in the red zone in the second half of the season, he was very much reliable. Got to give him credit somewhere. And I guess being a reliable red zone threat, there's nothing wrong with that, but he's definitely not somebody that I want to count on in between the 20s moving the chains down the field. The fact of the matter is Dak is going to have probably a much more improved offensive line this year. But last year, outside of standout offensive linemen like Tyler Smith, and Zach Martin, who was a little shaky at times last year, that's it. And the fact of the matter is, you're not going to make it very far with just three good offensive linemen. All right. When we were at our best in like 2014 and 2016, I don't think I could put that on the offense. I put that on the defense, those two particular runs that we weren't able to make it happen. I put that on the defense. But those two particular years in 2014 and 2016, that was when our offense was great. That was when we were great. We could run the ball very effectively and pound it down on opposing defenses because we had five really good offensive linemen. I'm not going to say great. They were five really good offensive linemen. You had Tyron Smith, you had Travis Frederick, you had Zach Martin, you had Doug Free, and you even had Ronald Leary. You had Ronald Leary as well during that stretch as well. But I mean, bro, even in 2015 when we went 4-12, we made Darren McFadden, as sorry of a running back as that dude is, we made him 1,000-yard rusher because that's how good that offensive line was. So that was when we were when our offense was great because we had 5 really good offensive linemen, Pro Bowl caliber offensive linemen, and most of them were drafted in the first round, outside of Doug Free, of course, and Ronald Leary, who were free agent pickups. The other guys were first round draft picks, that we committed to and said, that's our pick and we have very high potential for this guy. And boy, were we right. It's just that it's unfortunate to say that it didn't last very long. But that offensive line was by far the best offensive line in the game. But I mean, look, I'm gonna have to retitle this video. I mean, you guys will find out, of course, when you see it. But this went from a talking about Dak Prescott being ranked 16th to, like talking about, the differences with the offensive line security that he's been having over the course of the last few seasons. But and the defense, man, I felt like we had that. We were there in 2022. But it's like we lost that in a sense this past year. We lost that. It wasn't there, consistently every week like I had seen it on display in 2022, especially in the playoffs. We held future Hall of Fame quarterback Tom Brady to 14 points, and then we held Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy and the 49ers to 19 points. Sadly, that wasn't good enough, but, either way, like, it's just, we got to be able to see it be put together, on a consistent basis. And it hasn't been there. It just hasn't been there. And, I would love to be able to say that, look, like, this team is, locked and loaded, but I can't really say that. There's still too many question marks. Our defense, a couple players on our offensive line, but I mean, look, they're question marks, but in my opinion, I think they can become exclamation points. But we just got to see. We just got to see and see, how it all plays out, but basically to close, Dak Prescott found out that by Nick and Colleen, I assume they're talking about Nick Wright and Colleen Wolfe, that, were they ranked Dak Prescott 16? Are you kidding me? 16? All right. 16. And yeah, man, some of the support that Dak had last year wasn't very ideal for him to even get us to 12 wins and put up the numbers that he put up despite the degree of difficulty is very impressive. I'm very curious to see what he's going to be able to do now that he's possibly going to have better help this upcoming season, so that's pretty much it. Let me know how y'all feel about this. Let me know how y'all feel about the ranking of him being 16. Chris Sims had him number 8, and I don't even think that that's good enough. I still think that's too low. But, to all my audience and to all of Cowboys Nation, this is Mr. Cowboys fan out.